Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us here on Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. The sensex and the nifty recover in late trade, end the day in the green. IT stocks lend some support, but bank stocks see profit booking. SEBI seeks another 15 more days from the Supreme Court to submit its report on the Adani-Hindenburg matter. The market regulator says the probe is complete in 17 out of 24 investigations, and it is awaiting information from foreign regulators and agencies. All 10 Adani Group stocks decline in trade after Deloitte resigns. As the statutory auditor of Adani Ports, the group's market cap declines by 25,000 crore rupees. Nearly half of the 94 IPOs launched since 2020 have provided returns of at least 50%, shows the CNBC-TV18 analysis. Shares of 20 companies have doubled from their IPO price. Happiest Minds is the most successful in the last 3 years, gaining fivefold from its IPO price. India's exports see a sharp fall of 16% in July. Imports also declined 17%, taking the trade deficit below $21 billion. The government's strategic disinvestment drive remains slow. IDBI Bank sale could be pushed to next fiscal, with the Reserve Bank still assessing bidders. The government is yet to invite financial bids for BEML and Shipping Corporation, and no new addition to the privatization pipeline is being made. Doctors in India must prescribe generic drugs over branded drugs or risk a penalty. New rules mandated by the National Medical Commission say doctors could even potentially have their license suspended if they prescribe branded drugs. At least 21 people killed in Himachal Pradesh in the last 24 hours in separate incidents of floods and a cloudburst. Over 20 feared to be trapped after a landslide hit Shimla's Summer Hill area. IMD issues a red alert in Uttarakhand as rains continue to batter the state. Authorities suspend the Char Dham Yatra. The Supreme Court says it will issue guidelines for TV channels to strengthen the self-regulation framework. Terms the current maximum penalty of 1 lakh rupees as ineffective. Calls for penalties to be proportional to the earnings of the channel. It is the busiest weekend at the box office in the last 10 years. Rajnikant's Jailer mops up more than 300 crore rupees worldwide in just 4 days. Sunny Deol's Gadar 2 rakes in over 100 crore rupees. Shares of PVR Inox rise in trade. Mark Zuckerberg calls off the proposed cage fight with Elon Musk. This after Musk called for a practice round at Zuckerberg's backyard. The Facebook founder says Musk is not serious about fighting. Well, we'll go to the Zuckerberg versus Musk battle in just a bit, but let's head straight to the action on the Lal Street. It is the eve of India's 77th Independence Day. The sensex and the nifty gained about 10% each since last Independence Day. So that was the story over the past 1 year. However, if you take a look at the picture today, it's been a volatile day on Monday. We've seen the markets closing at a flat line, but this was one of the day's lows. So the nifty closing about 6 points higher, the Nifty IT about 200 points higher. Reliance put on about 30 points, and the Nifty Bank closing 100 points lower. So support coming in there from Reliance and the IT stocks. Banks, as we pointed out, continue to languish, with the Nifty Bank ending the day close to 0.25% in the red. Mid caps also underperformed the blue chips. Prashant is standing by now to take us through the trading action. Prashant, off the day's lows, but nevertheless closing flat.
You know, the motto seems to be, Shireen, never to stay down, right? I mean, it looked pretty poor in the morning. We were down 150 odd points on the Nifty, but by close, it was a steady move up. It was not sudden. It was not a 3 p.m. factor. Right from the word go after the opening lows, I mean, we kept moving higher and we ended absolutely flat in the green, which is a vast improvement compared to the first hour or so of trade. And a similar kind of trends for the Bank Nifty as well, although the recovery on the Nifty Bank was a little weaker as compared to what we had on the Nifty itself. Mid caps and small caps, I mean, they cut their losses by some 70-75%. The small cap index at one point was down 1.7%, and it ends just marginally lower, and same is the case with the mid cap index as well. On the large caps, on the Nifty indices, I mean, as you said, Reliance and a few others did well. But, you know, the action was once again in the broader markets. And I really want to get to that before going any further. And I'll start with losses because market breadth was negative. So it was the gap narrowed between gainers and losers, but it was still in favor firmly of stocks which were lower. So here you go. Nykaa was a big loser. Earnings, of course, disappointing. Muthoot Finance saw a sharp 10% slide at one point, ended 5% lower, large volumes. JSPL Metals as a pack, I mean, after, of course, pretty somber news out of China in terms of economic data, all suffering. City Union Bank, Timken India, Avalon, 10% lost on Friday, 10% today. These are also stocks which have seen huge run-ups and are now pulling back in some cases. Finolex Cables, Kirloskar Brothers, NRB Bearings, Birla Corporation, Hindware for the second day running, again, 20% losses in the last two sessions, and something like a Universal Cables where, I mean, there was a pullback as well. On the gaining side, the shipbuilders were the ones which did very well. We had, the management of Garden Reach with us early on, and they told us that between the Coast Guard and the Navy, some 1 lakh crores worth of ordering will happen over the next 3 to 5 years. The street took notice, not just Garden Reach, but stocks like Mazgaon and Cochin Shipyard also rallying very strongly in terms of trade. Other gainers today, NMDC, there was Bombay Dyeing, which did very well. There was DB Realty, Genus Power, that deal with GIC. The stock was at about 190 for a long time. It's broken out very strongly from there. Amber Enterprises, rate gain, still reacting to strong numbers early last week. Skipper Industries locked up 20%. KDDL, again, results reaction. Shakti Pumps, Gensol Engineering were some of the others. So, I mean, very strong recovery. I would call this a pretty good day, all told. Of course, action shifts to the US markets where the economy is looking very good. But the problem is that the dollar is also rising, and that is a problem for emerging markets, not just stocks, for equities, for currencies as well. So I think we need to track what happens out there in the US. The cues it throws our way tomorrow is a holiday, and of course we'll react to all of that day after morning. Shri.
Absolutely. We will react to that day after morning. As Prashant pointed out, no trade tomorrow on account of India's 77th Independence Day. Well, moving now to corporate action. Adani-Hindenburg, here's the latest. The market regulator, SEBI, has sought another 15 days from the Supreme Court to submit the report in the matter. The SEBI has informed the top court that its investigation has progressed substantially. Now, out of the 24 matters that SEBI is probing, it says in its affidavit to the Supreme Court that it's concluded investigation in 17 cases and is awaiting information from foreign regulators and agencies in other matters. All 10 Adani Group stocks ending in the red today. This after Deloitte resigned as the statutory auditor of Adani Ports. The company has also appointed a new auditor, assuring that it will resolve all matters in its September filing. Mangalam joins us now with more details. Mangalam, take us through the reasons given by Deloitte and the response from Adani on this change that we've seen at Adani Ports with respect to its auditor.
That's correct. So let's talk about what took place over the weekend. Deloitte had put out a note. In fact, they said that they've decided to resign as the auditor of Adani Ports. In fact, they said that they've resigned as they are not the statutory auditors of a substantial number of other Adani Group companies. In fact, the scope of audit does not extend to transactions incurred by or occurred between Adani Ports and other group companies itself. Remember, Deloitte had earlier qualified Adani Ports FY23 accounts on related party transactions itself. Adani Ports, however, on its part says that the board has accepted the resignation. That's not all. They've also appointed MSK and Associates CAs as their auditors, and this is among the top 6 names itself that we have. But importantly, to Deloitte's points, they've said that grounds advanced by Deloitte for resignation were not convincing or sufficient enough to warrant such a move, and it is not within the remit of the Adani Ports company or its board to actually recommend group-wide appointments. So those are two sides of the story. What is the street making of it? This morning we had a CLSA note which said that they've had many auditor changes in the recent past, and because one of the 6 global audit firms has replaced Deloitte, it is a limited fall that we're seeing. In fact, DHS's resignation may see a bit of a decline, but that decline would be a buying opportunity. They are buyers on the stock with a target price of close to 880 rupees per share.
All right, Mangalam, appreciate you joining us. Now, nearly half of the IPOs that were launched since 2020 have delivered at least 50% returns. 20 of them have even doubled from their IPO price. These multi-baggers include the likes of Happiest Minds, MTAR and Bector Foods. However, big names, those including Paytm, PB Fintech and Nykaa, remain well below their IPO price. Hormuz joins us now with more on the IPO report card. Hormuz.
And IPO season is well and truly back, and IPOs worth over 35,000 crores are lined up for the remainder of 2023. But today, we'll take you back to the last 3 years, which has seen the launch of nearly 100 IPOs. A caveat we use here is that we have considered only those IPOs that have had a size of 500 crore rupees or more. So let's take a look at these IPOs. Out of the 94 such offerings over the last 3 years, 44 of them have returned at least 50% to shareholders. 20 of them have even doubled from their IPO price. This is as of closing on last Friday. Among the most successful names include Happiest Minds Technologies, MTAR, Mrs. Bector's Foods, Craftsman Automation, which have tripled or even more from their issue price, and Macrotech and Equitas Small Finance Bank complete the list. Now, I'd like to draw your attention to Happiest Minds Technologies in particular. It was one of the few IPOs that were launched in the COVID year of 2020, and amidst the uncertainty, it was still subscribed over 150 times. As of closing on last Friday, the stock had gained at least 5 times from its IPO price. Now, the returns could have been much higher had it not been for the stock nearly halving from its all-time high of 1,580 rupees. Yet, the stock is up a handsome 450%. Of course, if there are gainers, there'd be losers too. And 26 out of the 94 IPOs are trading below their IPO price. And most of them are new age companies like Paytm, Nykaa, and PB Fintech, and including Aditya Birla AMC as well. But it is Craftsman Automation, which is the worst performing IPO over the last 3 years, correcting nearly 70% from its issue price. I'm breaking the norm slightly for a special mention. Mazgaon Dock Shipbuilders was not a 500 crore IPO, but a 450 crore IPO. After a brief period of struggle, the stock has left the street spellbound over the last 2 years, and as of closing on Friday, the stock was up 13 times from its IPO price. So the key takeaways from this? Well, 2 of 3 of India's largest IPOs, which is LIC and Paytm, are trading well below their IPO price, but 9 out of the 10 most successful ones are sized between 500 to 1,000 crore rupees.
Hormuz, many thanks for joining us. That's the India IPO Report Card 2020 to where we currently find ourselves, and that's giving us an interesting perspective on how DStreet and specifically IPO Corner has played out. In big macro data, India's exports fell by 16% in July year-on-year, while imports also fell by 17%, taking the overall trade deficit down to $20.7 billion versus $25.4 billion in the same month last year. Now, India's wholesale prices contracted for the 4th consecutive month. The wholesale price index had declined by 1.36% in July versus a decline of 4.12% in June. The decline was largely led by the fall in prices of mineral oils, basic metals, chemicals and textiles. However, food inflation has seen a sharp spike of 7.75% due to the rise in vegetable prices, though we have now started to see tomato prices easing somewhat. A CNBC-TV18 exclusive this evening. The government strategic disinvestment drive has slowed. The IDBI Bank stake sale could be pushed to the next fiscal as the Reserve Bank is still assessing potential bidders. Sapna joins us now with more. Sapna, all eyes were on IDBI Bank. We saw the expressions of interest being submitted at the start of this year, but it looks like forward movement is unlikely, at least in this financial year.
Well, it appears so looking at the trend so far, but let us first start with the process. The process itself is very cumbersome and lengthy. The fit and proper being done by RBI right now, will cover all corners. Probably bidders who are located in foreign jurisdictions, they will also be looked into. So that takes its own time. So that's one element. The other element that will also kick in is that after this, the bidders themselves, the qualified bidders themselves will also have to do a due diligence of the bank. So if you look at the entire process right from the time the EOIs have come in, 7 odd months ago, early Jan it came in. So around 12 to 18 odd months is generally what it is taking now for transactions to conclude. So if that is going to be the trend, then most likely it could be possible, not ruled out as of now, that the transaction actually can get pushed to the next financial year. Though, of course, if these loops are all followed well in time and everything goes well, the government will definitely be in a position to at least invite the financial bids. But in terms of conclusion of the transaction, that's where the question mark is, and that may shift to the next financial year. That's one element. Also, the other deals in place as of now, Shipping Corp and BML. Shipping Corp, everyone is waiting for the land assets to be listed. Once that's done, only then the financial bids can be called for. And then that again, time will have to be given to the bidders. So again, a time-consuming process that needs to be kept in mind. Similarly, BEML. Some of the state governments have yet to give their nod in terms of the title deed transfer from BEML to BEML land assets. Karnataka government for one is one instance. So that again will follow its own due procedure. After that, the financial bids will be called for. So the government, of course, is hopeful of concluding these transactions the current financial year itself. But if you look at the way the timelines are moving, how much time it takes, what are the queries which are coming from different corners, it's just likely that transactions could get pushed to the next financial year. And also, let's not forget, there is no fresh disinvestment pipeline in terms of strategic stake sales. Probably that's going to unfold only after the general election 2024 mandate comes in.
All right, Sapna, appreciate you joining us. Sapna Das there on the privatization process as well as the privatization pipeline. Now, in earnings space, Divi's Labs reporting a weak set of numbers for Q1, missing street expectations on all parameters. The company's net profit slipped nearly 50%. Revenue dropped 21% year on year. That was the story for Divi's. Shares of SpiceJet, meanwhile, up in trade after the company posted good numbers for Q4 of FY23 and the first quarter of FY24. Here's the breakdown. The company's consolidated net loss for the quarter ending March narrowed to 6.2 crores versus 485 crore rupees from a year ago for the quarter ending June. The company reported a net profit of 197 crores. However, revenue dipped more than 18% year on year. And there is more news on SpiceJet. Trouble for promoter Ajay Singh after the Delhi High Court. Now, the Supreme Court has summoned Ajay Singh for a personal appearance in the matter that is linked to the Credit Suisse dispute. The top court has decided to issue a contempt notice against Singh for his failure to repay Credit Suisse as per the consent terms. The court has also said that SpiceJet was required to pay $6.5 million to Credit Suisse but has so far paid only a little over $2 million. The apex court has also asked Ajay Singh to reply within 4 weeks. Well, we will head into a short break, but when we return, it's been the busiest weekend at the box office in the last 10 years. We crunch the numbers when we return. Now, the Supreme Court has expressed concern over the self-regulatory mechanism of the News Broadcasting Standards Authority. While hearing a plea challenging the sanctity of the NBA statutory framework, the court has held that the fine of 1 lakh rupees is no deterrent. Ashmit is standing by now with more details. Ashmit, take us through what the court has said in this matter and the likely implications.
Well, the takeaway that the Apex Court essentially has given to the News Broadcasters Association or the NBA is that the current self-regulatory framework in place for media channels is not enough of a deterrent. That's the concern being expressed. The application in question was essentially a plea by the NPA that challenges a Bombay High Court order. That High Court order essentially had questioned the statutory sanction that the NBA enjoys. Now, in this exchange between the counsel for the NBA, Arvind Dattar, as well as between the Apex Court, it was pointed out that the NBA has the powers to slap penalty to the tune of 1 lakh rupees. Now, that is something that the Apex Court observed is grossly insufficient, that in today's world where the channels are making money, it is not enough. 1 lakh rupees is not enough deterrent. In fact, he went on to say that there should be another mechanism involved. There should be another mechanism developed that, in fact, counts the penalty as a percentage of the profits being made by the company. So that's a new formula being proposed here. In fact, the Chief Justice who was hearing this case went a step further and said that there is perhaps more bite that is needed in these regulations, and until that is done, the current framework looks grossly insufficient. So that's the broad message being sent out. This is one conversation that the Chief Justice said that he's keen on beginning, and with not just the channel but the wider stakeholder body to arrive at a self-regulatory formula. But in the same breath, the Apex Court was quick to point out that it does want to steer clear of any form of censorship, of any form of state control on media. So that is a guardrail that he set for himself, but clearly keen on deploying a stronger regulatory framework, one that has more bite Justice Chandrachud's words.
Many thanks for joining us. In fact, Ashmit was also reporting from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has put out an important clarification saying that certain remarks attributed to the Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud are false, and the social media post that has been put out is plain mischievous. Now, India ranks highly among countries with most mobile phone users, but just 1/3 of India's internet users are women. A group of media educators are attempting to bridge this gap. Shivani Bazaz brings us this story from Delhi's NCR Tajpur Pahadi.
According to Oxfam's Digital Divide India Inequality Report 2022, Indian women are 15% less likely to own a mobile phone and 33% less likely to use mobile internet services than men. The number may be disheartening, but the battle to correct this rages on.
आज के मेरे शो का नाम है मोहल्ले की बातें.
Young women in pockets like Tajpur Pahadi and urban slums slap bang in the national capital region are bridging the digital divide and breaking the glass ceiling through the creative expression. Freedom is a program run by IdeoSync Media Combine, a non-profit organization working towards giving girls and women from marginalized communities a voice. They use and provide access to infrastructure to create and generate audio, video, or text to get the message across.
Freedom allows women and girls a space to play with technology. Because once you're able to play, once you're able to be free, once you're able to roam freely without judgment, what sites you're visiting, why you're spending more time here, what kind of media do you want to create, that learning opportunity becomes available.
Once these girls complete their 16-week course, they are given a stipend to make media content, which then they can use to raise issues that are important to them. One of these girls made a video on overflowing drains, and the local councillor came into action and got the issue fixed.
नमस्कार साथियों, मेरा नाम हेमलता है। मैं फ्रीडम सामुदायिक रिपोर्टर हूँ। मेरी निगम पार्षद से यही प्रार्थना है कि जल्द से जल्द हमारी नालियों को साफ करवाया जाए। धन्यवाद।
These girls from Tajpur Pahadi now run many podcasts, including Mohalle Ki Baatein, where they speak about the issues of their community. Also, Zyada Bolne Wali Auratein, which sheds light on the patriarchal practices in their own households.
और लव इज पार्ट ऑफ लाइफ, जिसमें हम अपने मन की बात की फीलिंग शेयर कर सकते हैं. और ज़रूरी जानकारी, जिसमें हम अपने एरिया के इम्पोर्टेंट इन्फॉर्मेशंस के बारे में बताते हैं.
और बबली का शो, जिसमें हम अपनी क्रिएटिविटी शेयर करते हैं.
And you can watch that entire episode of Changing India at 7:30 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18. Well, speaking of change, glamour is back for Indian cinema. If this past weekend's crowds are anything to go by, theatres have recorded their busiest weekend in a decade, and that's thanks to the release of Rajnikant's Jailer, Sunny Deol's sequel to Gadar, and Akshay Kumar's OMG Part 2. Shilpa Ranipeta is here with the box office buzz. Shilpa.
Well, Tamil superstar Rajnikant worked his magic with Jailer, and Sunny Deol returned to the silver screen as the much-loved Tara Singh in Gadar 2. And Indian movie lovers lapped it up in style. Indian theatres ended the weekend of August 11th to August 13th with a whopping 390 crore rupees in their cash registers. That's a 10-year high for the Indian cinema. Now, according to and this is according to Multiplex Association of India and the Producers Guild of India. Now, naturally, this also marks the busiest weekend since cinema halls reopened after the pandemic-driven lockdowns, with over 2.1 crore moviegoers flocking the theatres across the country. Now, incidentally, this weekend was also a milestone for PVR INOX. The 13th of August saw its highest admissions to date. Now, through the weekend, over 33 lakh people lined up to enter its over 1,600 screens in waves, clocking revenues of over 100 crore rupees. Now, the frenzy was not just about Rajnikant's Jailer, which clocked about 177 crores in India and 300 crores worldwide, or Sunny Deol's Gadar, which clocked 135 crores in India. The three movies that had also released in July, that is Oppenheimer, Barbie and Rocky and Rani Ki Prem Kahani, have also continued their strong run. Now, Rocky Rani has so far clocked about 130 crore rupees, Oppenheimer has raked in about 125 crore rupees, and Barbie has drummed up about 45 crore rupees. Now, this rise in occupancy levels, which has been visible since July, is definitely giving theatres hope that 2023 will be a turnaround year for the industry. And some big expectations are being pinned also on movies coming up like Shah Rukh Khan's Jawan and Salman Khan's Tiger 3 and Ranbir Kapoor's Animal, and also Hollywood extravaganzas like The Marvels and The Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom.
All right, Shilpa, many thanks for joining us. I have to say I haven't contributed to any of that box office success. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news continues. Visit our website, CNBC-TV18.com. All our top stories are there for you to read at your perusal. We will take a break. Be right back with you in a minute.